All right, here you go. We have the market watch for our TCG, starting off with Magic. Hashtag not your financial advice. We're starting off with standard. Not too exciting because, as you can see, in the losers bracket, we have all the winners from last week are starting to stabilize in price, or rather just plummeting because people are starting to crack packs. So uh, enough with the pre-orders. It's time to crack packs and get them to sell. TD5. Yes, Monty, welcome to the stream. Thank you for that unnecessary information. I can never unhear that as well. So, anyways, losers side, we got Vivi, Cloud. Uh, as you can see, the 60,000. They finally fixed it because we were worried that it was like going bonkers. I heard it was something about um, someone placed a pricing in the Canadian list, and then it messed up the algorithm. So there you have it. So it's finally back to its original price, $30. Go recent spoiled card, $20 sticking. Ultima, $11. So all of these cards are slowly stabilizing in terms of price, market price. Especially Dark Confident. I'm very excited about Dark Confident because it's still a very powerful card, but sitting at $8, that's very cheap for a reprint. So I would definitely get a bunch of copies if I were you. That would be my recommendation, but don't quote me on it. Let's move at the winners, starting off with Genji Glove, which is from Final Fantasy V. Equipped creature has double strike, and when the creature attacks, if the first combat phase is this turn, untap, and then it gains another combat phase. So it's already sitting at $5, very stable, especially since it got spoiled. It was sitting at around three, I would say $2 to $3, and then it spiked up. So that means people are very interested. It's especially in Commander. As you can see, Cloud. The set is heavily themed with equipment. So we have Cloud X Soldier and Cloud Midgard Mercenary, which you can help search for your equipments. And then Cloud enters, he gets a free equip. So that's pretty insane, and you get extra value by attacking. And then Godo is your familiar commander in Magic, where he can search for an equipment and then he can put it on the field, and then he just combo and just kill everyone on the board. So that's the theme right there. That's also pretty much why everyone's picking up that Genji Glove. Up next is Tifa's Limit Break, an uncommon from Final Fantasy VII. So it's going up to almost $2, which is quite interesting for an uncommon, especially since people are cracking packs. I was expecting this to be dipping a little bit further, but stabilizing at $2 is pretty insane. Like for the past like 5 days. So I'm very impressed by this card. It's basically a spree mechanic in Outlaws of Thunder Junction, where you get three different versions of the card's effect. And of course, it's heavily influenced by the commander decks. Tifa, Martial Artist, X Cloud Soldier, and the main set, Tifa Lockhart. So all very synergistic. And of course, I would say the biggest reason why it's going up in value is because of the collectability, especially if you get the foil, because the limit break of all the characters are very iconic. So you definitely want to get a single copy each. Yeah, per choose only one instead of spree. Yeah, I think that's the difference, Carl. Thank you so much. Spree gets you to choose multiple copies, multiple effects rather than just one. All right, and of course the starting town from Final Fantasy One. I love the art, and it's a very powerful land. By the way, it's already sticking at around $13 to $15, which is quite impressive for a rare land. I would see it could go a heck of a little bit higher, depending on the demand of the card. But we'll have to wait and see. But of course, it's going to be heavily used by the multicolor commanders and decks, maybe in the future with standard. But as you can see, some examples are right here are Vivi, Terra, and Sarah. These are some of the most popular commanders right now in Final Fantasy. CEDH, yes, I would definitely agree, Monty. I think CEDH is also going to be eating well in terms of getting good stuff in the set. Because having a mana confluence is pretty good in your commander decks. All right, let's move to modern. As you can see right here, there's only one card that I'm very interested in here in the modern metagame in terms of card finance, and that is the Urza Saga. It's the only winner that I'm interested. Already sitting at $50 after the announcement of what do you call this? The rules change with Urza Saga and losing abilities. So instead of sacrificing it because it doesn't have it went to its last lore counter, it's totally the opposite. It just stays there. So it's a huge deal. It's a huge buff to Urza Saga. So if it gets Blood Moon, it doesn't get removed right away. It just doesn't put a counter. Yeah, it's a weird buff. I hate it, but at the same time, I'm also tempted to get 4 copies of Urza Saga at this point because I'd rather just put it in my Merfolk in my Merfolk deck. So, but the biggest winners right here in using Urza Saga is Blue White Affinity, which I'm very curious why it's getting a lot of wins recently, especially in the previous regional champs, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, the Spotlight series from India. I'm messing up the name.
India.
Indy. I'm just gonna say Indy. Indianapolis. I can't read the name right. So SCG Indy. There were a bunch of blue white affinity decks floating around in the top tables, which I was baffled as to why. And that was before the buffs. So I'm very curious how this deck is gonna move forward in the current metagame, especially since everyone's starting to figure out how to beat the Boros energy decks. All right. So, and of course, Amulet Titan. My God, it has never been touched by the ban list from its existence, from the beginning of its existence. So, I'm very impressed by how this deck keeps existing in the first place, as it's very broken. And Brute Scale Combo. It's another deck. I think this is the deck that won, if I'm not mistaken. Or rather, it's Splashing Red. I forgot. It got to the top tables. It got to top 8 in the SCG Indie, and I'm not sure if it won. I think it did. So I'm not surprised getting a buff would make the card more expensive. All right, let's move on to Sealed. We have instead of the collector boosters, because it kind of dipped down in price. Because people are cracking packs and they're realizing that, oh, it looks like we're not getting some of our money back by cracking packs. They're supposed to sell them, guys, as sealed. But people are starting to look at the play booster displays or the boxes, which used to be sitting at 170, 160. Now it's going up to 180, 190. So there's been a shift in the attention with the Final Fantasy products, maybe due to what do you call this, supply and demand. Demand is super high, supply quite low. So people are trying to grab as much product as they can from Final Fantasy, just because of the hype. So my guess is it could sit up to 200 or 210. That's just my guess. Then it will start recorrecting once people, get a hold of the products, and then it will start dipping. But if you're a collector where you want to sit on these sealed products, it's definitely a good product to keep, especially in the future. Let's say 3 to 5 years, it could maybe double. But again, don't quote me on that because hashtag not your financial advice. Yep, that's the one. And now do you have one more amulet effect from Final Fantasy? Yes, the Bard, the new commander from the Simic, super insane. All right, so that's it for Magic. Let's move on to One Piece card game. On to you, G bro.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jerson. So once again, the wallet never stops spending. So here we have the recently released OP12 from One Piece TCG. I forgot the name. But of course, here we go first with Laboon from EB01. I can't believe it's already been almost 2 years old or 1 year old. 1 year old. So Laboon effect again, once again, activate main. You may rest this character. Give it to one of your opponent's characters -4 cost during this turn. This used to be very expensive and very sought after when Blackbeard was a premier metagame deck. However, Laboon right now is not in demand due to the middling success of Blackbeard in the current OP11, OP12 metagame. So it's back into 500 yen. Next would be Silver Shaylee from OP08. So once again, it was very useful during the early metagame with the not ST, with the Shanks and Shanks deck, which was won multiple times by our very own Dave. Shouts out to Dave. And of course, also been played in other red decks such as RP Luffy. But once again, there is a new Shanks starter deck. So the problem is, will Rayleigh be a slot in for such a deck? So only time will tell if Rayleigh still deserves a slot in the red Shanks deck. That's why it's back down to 900 yen. And lastly, we have Cavendish from EBO1. This is a very important card in Green Bonnie and especially the new Green Zoro from OP12, especially now that Bonnie will be receiving a new starter deck and there is no confirmation of any reprints of this card. So if you want to pick up copies now, you to build those green decks, it's gonna be very expensive, right? About 1400 yen at the moment. So yeah, that's gonna be very expensive and just hope for a reprint in PRBO2. So that's it for One Piece TCG.
All right, thank you so much, G Bro. Let's move on to the next segment, which is Top Deck of the Week. All right, Top Deck of the Week brought to you by Top Deck Games. Starting off with Standard in Magic, which is the Blue White Artifacts. This is a Tier 2 deck that has been floating around for quite some time since Tarkir came out, especially with the addition to United Battlefront. But it hasn't been quite popping off for the past, or for like the first few weeks. It just started creeping a little bit into the metagame for the past couple of weeks, especially with some of the events like the RCQ and SCG Indy. So and even the recent regional championships in Montreal and other regions. So what is the game plan for this deck? Basically, just flood the board with all the artifacts in your deck, because United Battlefront says look at the top 6 of your library, put 2 non-creature, non-land cards from them onto the battlefield. So it's basically, or rather, top 7 of your library, and then you put it on the battlefield. So the only goal for that card is to search your simulacrum and cheat them. Like if you have 2 copies, that would be amazing, because this will be the end game where even though you're down to 4, you have like 5 10/10 creatures, like golem creatures that are gonna smack your opponent's face, and then he's just not gonna win. So very artifact centric type of deck. Caveat is it's not playing creatures because you want to maximize the battlefront card. So why the synthesizer? Because it generates the constructs, or rather the golems, where they just get bigger and bigger every time you just flood the board with artifacts. And right now, Farewell has been rotated ever since last year, so there's no reason for you not to play this deck. And if you like super interesting play patterns, this would be the deck for you, because it has cards like Repurposing Bay, which is like the birthing pod for artifacts. And if you hate blue red, what do you call this, blue red Corey Steel decks, or the prowess decks, of course it's playing main board High Noon, so that's why you want to play this deck. So it could somehow beat it in a fair match with High Noon. Like you just tap out with United Battlefront, find your synthesizers, or Repurposing Bay, sacrifice your artifacts to get the synthesizer, and then start snowballing from there. So super strong mid to late game power. And then you have some controlling cards such as what do you call this? The claw brick. I forgot the name of the card. The clay fired bricks, which helps you find the plains, helps you find a land. The spring loaded saw blades and the braided net to help you fend off the aggro decks. Of course, the pros for this deck is it's heavy on recursion. You have Kaila's Reconstruction, and you have access to Lockdown, which again helps you beat the prowess decks. And then sometimes it puts in authority of the consoles and main board if you're like Carlo G right here. But yeah, usually they just play High Noon just to shut them down. Very flexible. Disruption again against the aggro decks. Lockdown, the snare, the saw blades, and card filtering. Very efficient, especially with United Battlefront and Candy Trail, which is an interesting common to look at this deck. The cons, though, is you're just gonna have a bad time against the blue and black based decks, like blue black mid range or blue white control. So if you're pretty much going to be tapping out, they'll just counter your cards, and then you're not going to gain any value, and then they're just going to drag the game way longer. So, and the blue black mid range, very decent amount of threats, and at the same time, they have counter spells and disruption cards such as duress on their arsenal. So it's going to be hard for you to deal with that type of deck. And it requires tight sequencing, which I said again, if you're interested in these kinds of play patterns, shoot ahead, but takes a lot of practice, by the way. It's not that easy to play this deck. And it can struggle to close quickly without the Thousand Moons Smitty, which is, I find it funny as a card name. It's basically your Urza Lord Artificer in standard, where you can generate more constructs as you resolve this card. If you don't have that or the synthesizer, you're definitely gonna have a bad time because you don't have other ways to drag the game except for like those spot removals in your deck. And then again, it heavily relies on artifacts. If you don't have artifacts in your field, you're gonna have a bad time. So there you have it. So final thoughts. Again, it's a tier 2/3 rogue deck. It requires a lot of practice to make it work, but if you enjoy it, definitely recommend it, especially if you want to catch people off guard for a rogue deck, especially in this metagame. So you got to play this if you're a big fan of artifacts, you just want to chain a bunch of game actions, and you just want to be different. You don't want to play the top tier decks. There's always ways to win, especially in Magic. All right, there you have it. That is the top deck for Magic. Let's move on to card not card fight. One Piece, because G-Bro number 2 isn't here.
Thank you very much, Jason. So here we go with Green Zoro, one of the newest leaders from OP12. Yeah, the three sword style or Santorio Ogi. So once again, Zoro has a very powerful skill of restanding after attacking a character when 3 Dawn is attached. This effect makes sure that you're able to apply pressure to the opponent's leader and characters at the same time. So, of course, you have cards such as Kuina and Tashigi, which rests an opponent character and attaches 3 Dawn to Zoro, making sure you're able to use Zoro's ability. And of course, you have Mihawk and Cavendish, effectively allowing you to play more than 10 Dawn per turn. So, of course, pros, leader skill is applying pressure every turn to your opponent's board and leader, because if they leave a character that can be attacked, then Zoro is just going to attack them for sure. And then effectively, you have more than 10 Dawn every turn. And of course, you have powerful green cards that are easy slot in, as Zoro does not necessarily have any specific cards to for the deck to work, because it's just 3 Dawn to the leader. And of course, cons, Zoro's pressure is not really that strong late game because high-cost characters are easier to defend. However, it's still a very powerful effect because you're still going to force them to block said attack. Of course, you also have a weird playstyle forcing you to play to spend 3 Dawn on your leader if you don't draw into Kuna and Tashigi, so making the early game not as strong because you choose between putting 3 Dawn on your leader or playing characters. And of course, resting is not a very powerful removal effect, so that's why you need to rely on your leader into attacking them, and then again, they can just block it. So, yeah, last thoughts. Powerful leader in OP12, Zoro once again shows that he is the king of early game, but in a different way by controlling the opponent's board. His leader skill is very annoying to deal with due to the low-cost characters being easy picking in the early game. However, the pressure dips in the late game once the high-cost characters are played. So it's a good counter to non-purple decks like Bello Betty and Zoro, the red Zoro. However, may face hardships against purple decks because they can just easily play high-cost characters, and that would require more Dawn from the leader. However, it's still a very good pickup or flagship. A lot of people are saying it's a tier S deck just because of the pure pressure it applies from the early to the mid game. So that's it for One Piece TCG.
All right. Thank you, G-Bro. Let's move on to the last segment, which is Judge Call. Take it away, Carlo G, which is he is on the stream. Let's move on to the judge call for Magic. Jim is attacking Chris with his Ocelot Pride and then passes the turn. Chris responds with Thought Scour, which says target player puts top cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, then draw a card. It's just an instant, so he can cast it on his end step. Jim then remembers that, wait, I get a 1/1 cat creature token with Ocelot's Pride effect that says at the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, which he did with lifelink, create a 1/1 white cat creature token. Then you have City's Blessing for each token you control, create a token that's copy. So it's snowballs. So that's not the point. Point is, he tried to remember that, or rather, he remembered that he had a triggered effect. And then Chris suddenly says, oh, no, let's call a judge. And he's claiming that Jim missed his trigger. What is the correct ruling? So, not going to beat the bushes any further. Let's try to look at the possible infraction, which is the gameplay error miss trigger at IPG 2.1, which is triggered ability triggers, but the player controlling the ability doesn't demonstrate awareness of the trigger's ability or existence by the first time that it would affect the game in a visible fashion. The tricky part here is there is a specific ruling in this scenario where Jim gets away with his claim of having the trigger because there's a note here on the right side that says passing priority, casting an instant spell, or activating an ability doesn't mean a triggered ability has been forgotten, as it could be still on the stack. So this could be a very common example of a forgotten trigger where it's not the same. It's kind of similar with miss trigger, but it's not the same at the same time. Because forgotten trigger means he just forgot it for like a couple of sequences, and then but it's technically he's obliged to to resolve the effect or whatever effect that's supposed to be going on the stack. So therefore, due to this ruling, Jim forgot the trigger, but he remembered, so he did not miss it. He will still get his 1/1 cat creature token because the main core of this ruling is to make sure that the rule of mistriggers is not to be abused, especially with some of the very eccentric players in the community of Magic, where they will just abuse this ruling. Like, no, you forgot this, you forgot that. Everyone forgets it's Magic is hard. At the end of the day, it's a hard game. So you got to remember all your triggers, but there are just times where you just forget it at a split second, and then sometimes it could cost the game. But if you just, for the sake of sportsmanship, you got to show that you can beat your opponent with the right way, right? So I would say this is a category of a forgotten trigger. So there will be no penalty, and of course Jim will get away with getting a 1/1 cat creature token. So thank you for confirming this, Carlo. Yes, very helpful that we have these rules pulled up for our judge call. So let's move on to One Piece card game. Almost said Vanguard again.
Okay, thank you very much, Jerson. So here we have Chris declaring an attack with his leader. Busoy uses Gum Gum Fire Pistol, which says counter up to one of your leader characters, gain plus 4,000 during this battle. And then KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 4,000 power or less. So Busoy targets Kami, which says when an effect is activated, when your opponent activates an event or trigger, and if your opponent has 2 or more life cards, trash 1 card from the top of each of your you and your opponent's life cards. So Busoy plays the counter event and then chooses to KO Kami with the second ability. So will Kami's ability activate?
Up to one of your KO. There's stack Busoy. I'm not gonna think about it.
So yeah, the answer is no. Kami moved zones prior to her effect being activated, so her effect will no longer activate and resolve, because according to the rules 8-1-3-1-3, an automatic effects will not activate and not resolve even if the activation timing is fulfilled if the card that fulfilled the activation timing moves to another area before the effect is activated. So basically, Kami changed zones. It can no longer see that it activated the effect and therefore will not resolve.
I see. All right. Too bad for, what's his name? Chris. Too bad for Chris. So another short end on the stick. So there you have it. Hope to see you guys next week for all of these amazing events. So this is TD Bapo and Gbro #1 signing off. Stay safe and stay dry. Goodbye.